Today we are going to have a look at a new and very affordable macro lens. This is the TT Artisan 40mm f2.8 macro lens. This lens is designed for APS-C cameras, but it is also available for micro four thirds cameras as well. So let's find out whether this lens could be a good and cheap macro lens for your mirrorless camera. Good morning everyone, Wang here, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to have a look at this TT Artisan 40mm f2.8 macro lens. Before we start, just a quick disclaimer, TT Artisan they sent me this lens for this review, but this is not a sponsored review. So what I'm going to say is my honest thoughts about this lens, and also I'm going to share with you my test results of this lens. But if you want to support me, you can also check out the link to the official web store in the video description below. This TT Artisan 40mm f2.8 lens is a fully mechanical and fully manual lens with no electronic support. The lenses are available for Sony E, Fuji X, Canon EOS M, and also micro four thirds cameras. When you use this macro lens on an APS-C camera, the equivalent focal length would be 60mm, which means this lens could also be a good everyday lens. And if you mount it on a micro four thirds camera, the equivalent focal length is 80mm, which means this is also a good focal length for taking traditional portrait photos. This lens is fully made of metal, and one interesting thing is the aesthetic design of this lens is quite a bit different from the typical TT Artisan lens. If it doesn't have the TT Artisan logo printed on the lens here, I probably wouldn't know this is a TT Artisan lens. The focus ring is at the front of the lens and it feels very smooth. The travel throw is around 180 degrees, and the front element of the lens would extrude when you change the focus distance from infinity to close focus distance. Actually, it looks like all the elements inside the lens would move together when you are changing the focus distance. The aperture ring is at the back of the lens and it has clicks. There is a click for every half stop from the maximum aperture f2.8 all the way to the minimum aperture f16. The weight of this TT Artisan macro lens is around 370 grams, so it's reasonably lightweight despite the full metal construction. This lens has a maximum magnification ratio of 1:1, and the minimum focus distance is 17 cm, which may sound like quite a long distance, but because the front element would extend when you change the focus distance to close focus distance, so at 1:1 magnification, the distance between the front element and the subject is only around 4.5 cm, which is not really that far away. So it is probably not the best macro lens for shooting insects or any other live subjects. When taking photos of far away objects, the center sharpness is already excellent at f2.8. While stop down to f4 can increase the center sharpness a little bit, I don't think anyone will be disappointed by its center sharpness even at f2.8. Corner is a bit soft at f2.8. When stop down to f5.6, the corners become a lot sharper. But you do have to stop down to around f8 if you want to have excellent corner sharpness. When taking photo at 1:1 magnification, the sharpness is already really good even at the maximum aperture f2.8, very good contrast and also very good sharpness. Of course, the depth of field at f2.8 will be really narrow, so you probably have to stop down the lens a bit anyway, even though the sharpness is already very good. At f2.8, bokeh from this TT Artisan lens is round and quite clean as well. There's a little bit of halo effect near the edge of the bokeh balls, but it's not really that obvious. There could also be a bit of cat's eye bokeh near the corner. It's quite subtle and it's not really noticeable in most photos. When stop down the lens, bokeh balls still remain reasonably round. This photo was shot at f8. Apart from a bit of halo in some area, overall the bokeh still look pretty nice and smooth. Vignetting is really well controlled by this TT Artisan macro lens. At f2.8, there is some vignetting but not terrible at all. Stop down to f4 and only the very corner you see some sign of vignetting in this prank war photo. And at f5.6, then vignetting is virtually not noticeable. Lens flare control is pretty average with this macro lens. When shooting into a bright light source, there could be a bit of lens flare, but to me, the biggest problem is when there's a strong light source that is just outside the frame, the opposite side of the photo would usually have very low contrast and a lot brighter than it normally would be. So if you're taking photo on a sunny day, quite often you may see the bottom edge or bottom corners would look a little bit washed out and a lot brighter than it normally should be. Because this lens doesn't come with any lens hood, so one solution would be to buy an aftermarket lens hood that you can screw onto the front filter thread. Otherwise, you can try to use your hand to block the sun when you're shooting on a bright sunny day, and that can help reduce the amount of lens flare. This lens has very minimal amount of distortion when shooting at normal distance. Look at this brick wall test photo, you can see virtually no distortion at all. Sun stars from this TT Artisan macro lens doesn't look too exciting. Starting from around f8, you can see a bit of sun stars, but even if you stop down all the way to the minimum aperture f16, the sun stars still doesn't look very sharp or very nice at all. Chromatic aberration is really not bad at all with this lens. Most of the real-world photo I shot, I see almost no color fringing at all. Even when I see it sometimes, it is at a very minimal level. The results from my local test is also very good. I can see almost no color fringing at all, so I'm very happy about that. Okay guys, I have just shared with you all my test results of this TT Artisan 40mm macro lens. The overall performance of this lens is really not bad. Yes, there are a few flaws, but if you ask me, I think these flaws are really quite acceptable for a lens at this price point. So what do you guys think about this lens? Let me know in the comment section below, and thank you very much for watching this video, and I'll see you in my next video.